Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Benchmade 555-1, which is a very interesting little knife. This is an upgraded version of the standard Benchmade Mini Griptilian, using higher-end steel and just better materials overall. Let's go ahead and jump into a size comparison first off. Right here is the Spyderco Delica, and in many ways these two knives are directly competing against each other, particularly in this configuration. I mean, they're very similar in terms of overall size. Blade length, the Mini Grip wins out very slightly because it doesn't have this little area here, but they're both doing very similar things. They're aiming to be a small, everyday carry sort of knife. Other size comparison points, right here is your Ontario Rat number 1 and your Rat number 2. So again, same basic idea here. And, yeah, I think that should suffice for size comparison there. And so let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this little pocket knife here. Okay, so on the good side, first off, it's a mini grip. I mean, not to be trite, but that is absolutely a thing. I mean, the Mini Griptilian is one of the better known knives out there in the everyday carry world, and it's one of the more loved knives out there. There are a lot of people who have these in their pockets, and so it's a tried and true design. There's a lot of good that just comes from the fact that the 555-1 is at its core just a mini grip. But there are some improvements as well. One of them is the blade here. So you can get this in the normal downgraded version as well, but this has a sheep's foot style blade here, as well as the spider hole, opening hole. My understanding, if you look at the Spyderco forums, is that an agreement has been made by which Benchmade can use this. I don't know what that agreement is. It's not public, but whatever. It's out there. They're not ripping them off. Or at least if they are, they're paying them for it. So that's something important here. But this is a nice little detail because not only does this hole work very well for opening when you use your thumb here, because you just grab the flesh of your thumb here and then pop it open, but it also works for the index finger, or in my case, usually middle finger flick. So you can flick this knife open with a bunch of options. It works nicely for gloves, and best of all, it isn't in the slicing path. As you slice into something, this hole is entirely... everything will just flow right around the hole, as opposed to a thumb stud where it can snag. You can see here that the hole has actually been well thought out because it's entirely on this flattened portion of the blade, which means that the hole doesn't get wider and thus it won't catch on the material as readily. So that's a nice thing, honestly. I think the very best thing that a mini grip can have is this little Spidey hole, and so I love that they've combined it with the sheep's foot. It's great. So that's good. Next thing, the knife is fully ambidextrous because it's an axis lock. All of the relevant portions are on both sides, and you can swap the clip over as well. All you need to do is unscrew these screws. So this is a knife that is a rare knife that is just as friendly to the lefties as it is to the righties, which is great. Ergonomically speaking, it's solid. I've got smaller hands than most, so I maybe like this a little more than most, but I can still get a 4-finger grip. And the little bit of jimping here, the ramp, beautiful freaking thing. Like that very much. Next thing, unlike the normal Griptilian, this has a flow-through design, which means, you can see here, this is just using backspaces. And although the blade is plenty far away from everything, it's a very safe flow-through design. There's no way to cut yourself on it. It is a very, very... that can be nice, particularly if you work in linty or dusty or dirty situations, where, a conventional closed-back design might attract crud that this won't let through there. Then finally, the blade on this guy I like very much because, like I said, the sheep's foot blade is a great design touch because it gives you a lot of power for these kinds of drawing cuts, which I use on a regular basis. It's got a nice sharpening choil here, which is very nice. It's using relatively thin stock. We compare again to the Delica here. The stock widths are about the same. Maybe the Delica's a little thicker at the top, I'm not sure. But, either way, that's a very nice thing, and it's an efficient cutting tool. I love the sheep's foot blade for cutting, but it's got enough point that you can still punch into a box, no problem. So, this is a great blade on a great blade shape. So, there you go. Let's recap. The best things from these, the nice blade here. The flow-through design has some advantages, although it's got some disadvantages too. The ergos are good for smaller hands. They're fully ambidextrous. It's got the opening hole, which is great, and it's a mini grip, which can't argue with that too much. But let's talk about what's great about the 555-1 here. To me, what is 100% great about this are the materials upgrades. When you go up to the 555-1, you move from a hollow plastic handle with a partial liner to this G10 handle with full liners. As you saw in the disassembly video, this guy is got these very, very full liners, which is nice. And it makes the knife in the hand feel a lot more substantial than it did previously. Also makes it a little more durable, a little bit more likely to take harder use, although it's a mini grip. Are you using it that hard? But anyways, that's very nice. And in addition, you've got the gray G10 on the top, the blue G10 around the rims, which is nice as well, and is milled out in places. And then to top it all off, they really upgraded the steel. Because you're looking at here, there it is, you're looking at CPM 20CV steel, which is a great steel. 100%. Not only is 20CV one of the best everyday carry steels out there, but Benchmade does a very good job with it. They heat treat it well, and so this cuts like crazy. And so, really, these upgrades turn the mini grip from a knife that out of the box is a little bit like plasticky. It's a little bit like chintzy feeling, if you will. And with these upgrades, the G10, the full liners, and the 20 CV steel, this becomes a very nice high-end sort of knife that's absolutely good to go. And so, to me, that's great here. These material upgrades really do take the mini grip to the next level. Let's talk about what's bad. On the bad side, first off, I am not a huge fan of painted clips or coated clips. This is black, and so it makes it maybe a little more discreet in many situations, but the thing is it won't stay that way for long, because the clip is the most exposed part of the knife, and every time you rub up against a wall or something, it's going to take little chunks of paint off of this black clip. And so after a while, your clip's going to look beat up, and you're going to end up sanding it off anyways to get something that looks more like this here. And, let's just skip the pretense and move straight to an unpainted clip. I think that would have been better, and I think it would have fit with the overall theme of the knife a little better. But that's not a huge deal. It'll just look ugly over time. Next thing, unfortunately, the G10 on this guy, in this area up here, is a little bit on the slippery side. So you can see it almost has a little bit of a polish on it. Back here, this texturing really does help to get it in hand, and once it's in hand, it's pretty solid. I mean, between the texturing back here, the jimping up here, the jimping down here, it's not really going anywhere, but it is a little bit slippery to manipulate, particularly up in these bolster areas here. So there you go. Next thing, this is a heavier knife than the original because of the full liners, and so if you're used to the original mini grip, this is going to come in at 2.85 ounces, where the other one's going to be a little bit lighter. So that's definitely a difference. Then finally on the bad side is the price. This is $170. And look, it's a Benchmade. You're not going to get good value. That's a simple part of who that brand is in 2017. But, the $30 butterfly tax strikes again. And that price to me is bad, because I feel like this would be a really great knife at $140 or $150, but by the time you hit $170, it kind of takes a little bit of the shine off it, if you know what I mean. And there's really strong competition in that price range, and so, for me, that is absolutely bad. I feel like the price on here is not a great value, even if the knife is a great knife. So that's the bad to me, is that the price has the butterfly tax in there again. It is heavier than the original. It's a little slippery, and it's got the black painted clip, which is just going to show, and it's a little slippery in manipulation. Once you got it locked in, it's good. But and the painted clip is going to show wear like crazy. Let's talk about what's ugly. Two ugly issues with this knife. First off, they are using a permanent thread locker on some of these screws, which meant that I was completely unable to do a full disassembly. Mind you, I was able to do the pull the pivot out style disassembly, and that's okay. That'll work most of the time. But still, I would really like to see them move away from that. It's not something that Benchmade's done a lot of in the past, and so that's not great. The other bigger issue is quality control issues. Benchmade, as many of you know, has been having a rough time with quality control for the last few years. It's 2017 right now. And unfortunately, this knife is another example of that, because in order to get this working properly, the centering is not quite there. I know what you're thinking, but Nick, it's okay, it's not touching, that's fine. Yeah, I get it, but the problem is, this is a knife that is not a great value. I mean, you're paying $170 here. You are paying extra money for this brand, and if they're going to charge me too much money for something, they better do it damn right. And this isn't quite damn right. And so my argument always for Benchmade in 2017 is that you shouldn't buy it sight unseen. Either go to a brick and mortar store where you can buy one, check it out, look for vertical or horizontal blade play, check the centering, and make sure that the action is still smooth with all of those things. Well, ideally without them. Or you work with an online retailer who's willing to check for a smooth action with no vertical or horizontal blade play and good centering. That'll get you one that's pretty good, but unfortunately in 2017 we are having to do Benchmade's quality control job for them, and that's really ugly, and it's not something you should have to do, and you should have to pay to get them to fix. So that's the ugly to me, is that they've still got quality control issues, and that this $170 knife is not scented here, and that unfortunately they are using a permanent thread locker, which causes a little bit of difficulty. Let's go final conclusions here. Look, final conclusion, the Mini Grip, like I said, is one of Benchmade's very best-selling knives, and it's kind of one of those default knives in the knife world. If you just go on a forum and ask somebody for a recommendation for a pocket knife, usually the Mini Grip is one of the ones they'll recommend. Because, well, it's good. It's solid. There's a lot of good here. You know, even though it's not my cup of tea personally, the Mini Grip, for whatever reason, just has never grabbed my heart. There is still a lot to love about it, and particularly when you throw in the sheep's foot blade with the opening hole, it is just, it's better. It's a more useful shape. There's a lot of excellence here. And indeed, in this version, the 555-1, they have created the best Mini Grip ever. There is no doubt in my mind that this is the way to do a Mini Grip if you're doing the Mini Grip, because it's got the best materials, best construction, best look, whatever. And it is a remarkably solid EDC knife, and frankly, it's kind of an ode to everything that makes the Mini Grip excel. However, it is also the most expensive Mini Grip ever. It is nearly twice the price of the vanilla version, which you can get for like $90 or so. It's almost at that point where it's a little bit weird. Like, okay, I'm paying $170 for a Mini Grip. And that's something I struggle with a little bit. And so, really, that's where it comes down to, is that this is an incredibly high-quality knife with a really great build. I mean, it's a great knife, but that price just kills me a little bit, and so my recommendation kind of breaks in two here. If you are a fan of the Mini Griptilian, if you've had one that you've loved for years, or you've handled one and you're like, oh my god, that is the knife for me, and you want to see that knife brought to its highest form, then you will love this knife. The 555-1 is really a perfection of griptiliatude, if you will, and for a Mini Grip enthusiast, this is a great end game, a shining gem, and a stellar choice, and because you love the design already, you'll pay a little bit extra to get that design and higher materials. But if you are just looking for a nice, moderate to high-end everyday carry knife, this becomes a little harder to recommend. Because even if we put aside the fixable quality control issues, the value is the bugaboo. I mean, it's a great knife, and for $30 less, I would even come close to calling this guy a gem. But the lack of that compelling value takes the shine off it as a general recommendation for somebody just wanting a knife. At $170, the market is just way too competitive. I mean, for that money, you could do really well in a bunch of places on my Gems playlist. And you might end up coming back here, 100%. If you're looking for a knife, you got that in your pocket, maybe this is the choice that you're going to make. And it's not a bad choice. It's understandable. You wouldn't be wrong to do it. But at that kind of price point, you need to do your research, because it's not like an, oh my god, yes, do this. It's a, well, you could, but there's a lot of stuff too. So that's kind of where I land at the end of the day. If you love the Mini Grip already, you're going to adore this knife. It's the best version of it ever. But for everybody else, although it's a really solid piece, the Butterfly Tax Flood is this guy, I think, slightly away from where you want to go. But hey, what do I know? Hope this has been interesting to you, that this helped you get a grip on this knife, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.